Lesson 11. Does my past determine my future? We're dealing in this lesson with a human emotion of shame. We all feel it, but none of us are designed to deal with it because God never intended you to experience shame. It's a problem. And this story is going to give us insight in how to deal with the problem of shame. It's from Luke chapter 7, and it takes place around a dinner table. One of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him. And he went into the Pharisee's house and reclined at table. Now, that's a description of how they ate together. There would be this U-shaped table, and in the middle of the U is where the servers would come and give the dishes. The table was low to the ground, like 6 inches or so. And the guests would lean on a left elbow on a cushion and eat with their right hand. The host of the banquet would be at the very top of the U. His number one guest, his honored guest, would be at his backside, facing the host. And here's what happened. And behold, a woman of the city, who was a sinner, when she learned that he was reclining at table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of ointment. Now, a couple of questions. How did she get in? Well, these banquets were public spectacles. So the villagers could come and stand in the courtyard and peer in the windows of what was going on. But they weren't really allowed to cross the threshold into the banquet hall. But this woman did. And she brought one of these. This is, in fact, an alabaster flask. I got it in Egypt, so it's not an Israelite alabaster flask, but it's pretty close. This is about the size of it. This is a pint of ointment. That is a lot, especially considering that 1 ounce of ointment could create like a gallon of perfume. This is not the perfume. This is the sticky stuff from which it is made. That is huge. Now, standing behind him at his feet, weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears and wipe them with the hair of her head and kissed his feet and anointed them with ointment. She is doing 3 things. She's washing his feet, she is anointing his head, and she's kissing his feet, even wiping his feet with her hair. Now, because Simon the Pharisee had not washed Jesus' feet, her tears, and the word for tears is like raining down. These are crocodile tears. If you've experienced shame, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And there's little mud puddles in between Jesus' toes now from the dirt on his feet mixed with her tears. And she takes her hair. It's amazing because for women, hair was like a big deal. And she cleans his feet. And we don't know particularly what her sin was, but the fact that her hair is let down and the fact that she crossed the threshold with no shame indicates she likely was a prostitute. Can't prove it, but that's my guess. Verse 39. Now when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would have known who and what sort of woman this is who is touching him, for she is a sinner. Now, you could just see Simon curled up in a fetal position, trying to keep his feet away from this sinful woman. Remember, the assumption was that sinfulness was more contagious than righteousness. Jesus doesn't make that assumption, which is why he allows her to touch him, because he thinks his righteousness can leach off into her, not the other way around. And notice that Simon says this to himself. He doesn't say it out loud. So Jesus, proving he's a prophet, reads Simon's mind, which isn't that hard because Simon's being pretty obvious with his body language. And he says, Simon, let me ask you a question. I'm going to tell you a story, and you give me the answer to the riddle. There was a moneylender, and he had 2 people that owed him a lot of money. One owed him 500 denarii, which denarii is a day's wage. So this is a couple years worth of work. The other guy owed him 50, so a month and a half. If the moneylender forgave both the debts, who would love him more? Well, no money lender's going to actually do that, so it's a fictitious story. But Simon says, well, I suppose that the one who was forgiven more would love more. And then this is brilliant, verse 44. Then turning toward the woman, he said to Simon, do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. And you gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she's not ceased to kiss my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore I tell you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But he who is forgiven little, loves little. What a powerful scene. Jesus is looking down at his feet at this woman. And in front of it is Simon. He's looking at the woman, but talking to Simon. He never breaks eye contact with the woman because this is a moment where he is going to deal with her shame and explain to her that her love for him will allow him to eradicate her shame. Then those who were at the table with him began to say among themselves, "Who is this who even forgives sins?" And he said to the woman, "Your faith has saved you. Go in peace." The reason Jesus doesn't deal with their argument of how dare you forgive sins, only God can do that, he's already settled that argument. Like before, remember the paralytic let down through the roof? Jesus has dealt with that argument, and he tends not to answer the same question twice. He's got something more important than an argument. He has a person who is dealing with shame, crushed by shame, that needs to be released. And that becomes his priority with you as well. If you will come to him and give him the honor he deserves, he will remove from you the burden that you bear.